The order came down without ceremony, without explanation, and without mercy. One moment she was standing on the carrier deck, her boots planted firm against the vibrating steel as jets tore through the sky above her. The next, she was surrounded by officers who would not meet her eyes. They gave no reason, no justification, only a command. She was to leave the ship, effective immediately. Her clearance revoked, her name erased from the manifest. In a world built on orders and obedience, silence was the cruelest weapon they could wield, and they wielded it against her with surgical precision. She did not argue. Her jaw remained set, her posture unbroken, even as the whispers spread across the deck. Sailors turned their heads. Some watched with quiet sympathy, others with uneasy complicity, but none dared step forward. She carried herself to the waiting transport vessel without a word, her expression carved from stone, her silence heavier than chains. She was a woman of the sea, molded by the relentless rhythm of tides and steel, and her dismissal was more than a bureaucratic act. It was an erasure. To be escorted from the carrier without explanation was not just disrespect. It was exile. But she walked steadily, carrying with her an unspoken truth, a history etched in scars and sacrifices that no order could erase. She had given her youth to the Navy. Years of nights haunted by sonar pings in the abyss, days spent submerged in steel corridors, where sunlight was only a memory. She had trained until her lungs screamed for air, fought until her body bled salt and sweat. She had once stood on the deck of a submarine as it breached through a storm, waves lashing against her face, feeling as if the sea itself had tried to claim her, and yet she never yielded. When men faltered, she held steady. When fear whispered, she silenced it. There were those who remembered her differently, not as the woman quietly escorted from a ship, but as the officer who had once volunteered for the mission no one wanted. A rescue beneath black waters, where seconds meant lives and failure meant silence forever. She had gone, not for glory, but because she could not watch another crew drown in unanswered cries. The sea had nearly taken her then, but she had returned with every soul alive. And yet here she was, discarded like a name scratched from a ledger. The conflict ran deeper than any single decision. Rules demanded conformity. Systems demanded obedience, but systems had no memory for sacrifice, and authority had little room for compassion. So the order was followed. She was gone, her belongings placed in a sealed case, her record reduced to numbers and checkboxes. Her silence, however, remained unbroken, and that silence unsettled those who believed their power absolute. Days passed. On the surface, nothing changed. The carrier continued its drills. Its aircraft roared across the skies. Its sailors stood at attention. But beneath the waves, in a place where pressure crushed steel and darkness reigned, something stirred. A submarine crew, hardened by years of isolation and unspoken loyalty, received word of her dismissal. For them, she was not just another officer. She was a leader whose strength had been tested in the silence of the deep, where no applause existed, where courage could not be staged. They remembered her voice steady in emergencies, her hand guiding them when alarms blared and the hull groaned under the weight of the sea. To remove her without cause was not just disrespect, it was betrayal. The submarine should have remained in protocol, bound by orders like any other vessel. But when it surfaced without clearance, cutting through the swells like a black blade, every man and woman aboard knew what it meant. They broke silence not for insubordination, but for honor. The sea itself seemed to part as the steel giant rose, spray cascading down its flanks. On the deck of the transport that carried her away, she stood at the bow, the wind tearing strands of hair across her face. She saw it before anyone else, the tower rising from the ocean, the flag rippling in defiance. The crew around her gasped, some stumbling backward, but she remained still, her heart a storm of restrained emotion. She knew what this was. Not rebellion, not defiance. It was recognition. The submarine slowed its approach, water rushing off its hull in streams. Sailors stood in formation atop the steel deck, their faces unreadable, but their silence thundered louder than any salute. It was a gesture not sanctioned by manuals or orders. It was a statement forged from loyalty, from memory, from the unbreakable truth that respect is earned in blood, not granted by rank. Those who had cast her out could not stop this moment. They could only watch from a distance, powerless as the narrative slipped from their grasp. In the eyes of the sailors, the truth had surfaced, undeniable and absolute. She did not speak. Words were unnecessary. Her silence was her answer, her dignity untouchable. In that stillness, one truth became eternal. Authority could strip titles, erase names, and write her out of records. But it could not erase what she had become in the eyes of those who had followed her into the abyss. The world would remember this moment. Not for the scandal, not for the politics, but for the sight of a lone woman on the deck of a small vessel, facing a submarine that broke the ocean's silence for her. It was the sea itself rising in her defense. There are moments in life where the loudest sound is silence, where dignity stands taller than power, and where the truest form of loyalty is unspoken. In the stillness between orders and defiance, she embodied something greater than rank or recognition. She was proof that honor needs no voice. And though history might not record her name in medals or ceremonies, it would be etched forever in the eyes of those who witnessed the submarine rise for her. An image of loyalty, respect, and unshakable strength. So when people ask what it means to honor those who serve, the answer lies not in speeches or parades, but in silent moments of truth. Because sometimes the deepest respect is not shouted, not ordered, not commanded. It is given freely, in defiance of injustice, like a submarine breaking the surface against protocol, simply because honor demanded it.